Episode 9 begins at Castle Plundor. Inside the castle, we have Luna, the leader of the Lunatics, along with Amok and Alluro, and of course, Vultureman of the Mutants. Now, at the moment, both Alluro and Vultureman are building something new. We'll get to that in a minute. That's when Luna tells them to hurry up about it, and the reason why she's telling them that is because that they had to come up with a plan to get to New Thundera to get the long lost churches before the good guys do, because according to her, what she says, that already the Thundercats are claiming some of the churches themselves. So when Luna asks Alluro and Vultureman what are they going to do about it, Alluro says, "Relax, we got everything under control. Besides, we got a plan involved," he said. So Vultureman was more than happy to explain the plan to Luna. But better than that, they needed a Thundercat to fix up the Skytomb to take them to New Thundera, and that would be Panthro. And why is that? Because according to Alluro, if he can get the Feliner there, why not a Skytomb? So that's exactly what the plan is, according to Vultureman and of course Alluro. So according to Alluro, that means he has to do what he knows best, hypnotize Panthro. And why is that? Because as anyone would tell you that it's all part of the plan. Meanwhile, at Cat's lair, in the control room, we have Cheetara. She's letting Lynx know in the Tower of Omen's control room that the feline that has Pumara and Bengali inside is all set up and ready to go. In the Tower of Omen's control room, after hearing this transmission from Cheetara, Lynxville says, "I read you, Cheetara," and then just lets Feliner know that has Pumara and Bengali that everything's all set up. So after hearing that transmission from Linkso, the feliner takes off. Now you're probably wondering what are Pomara and Bengali doing in the feliner? Well, their mission is to go to New Thundera to claim the rest of the long-lost churches of Thundera. So Bengali, although now the feliner's in outer space, he just lets Chitara in the Kessler's control room that if they have any readings about the long-lost churches that he will let her know. And so Chitara agrees, and so that ends the transmission. Long story short, back on Third Earth and in the Kessler's control room, that's when Chitara saw that Lionel had just showed up behind her. Turns around to look at Lionel, she made a compliment. She says, "Well, thanks to Panthro, he made it all possible to make all those modifications in the feliner, but without it, nothing can be possible," she said. Lionel agrees with Chitara, but then asks the question of where he is. "He's out in the Thunder Tank," Chitara said. Says that Panthro has been working hard on it, and of course she's not wrong, and that she says that Panthro even sometimes forgot what the countryside should be like. But then something happened to Cheetara, so Lionel asked her what happened. Cheetara just told Lionel what her sixth sense had said. There's an attack on Burble Village by Slythe and Monkey and other mutants. The Burbles panicked during the attack and they were starting running all over the place. She knew that the Burbles were in trouble, so she suggested to Lionel that they must head there right away. With no time to lose, Lionel and Chitara head off to the Burble village on a Thunderclaw. So, meanwhile, at the Burble village, by the time that Lionel and Chitara arrived, they met with Rubber Bill, the leader of the Burbles. But before that happened, she pleaded her case with Lionel to say that usually her sixth sense was never wrong. Well, back with her and Lionel just saw Roberbill, the leader of the Burbles, after they found out that by the time they arrived, there was no sign of the attacks. No mutants, no nothing. So when Roberbill was asking them, both Lionel and Chitara, what brings them by? So, Lionel went first to ask Robert Bill a question. "Are you and your friends okay?" "We're fine," Robert Bill said. Now, Chitara finds this really weird. There's no sign of the attacks anywhere. "What happened to the mutants?" she said. "Where did they go? What's going on here?" So back with Chitara, she pleaded her case with Bill, the leader of the Burbles, that said that just a moment ago her sixth sense had told her that him and his friends were in trouble. When Bill heard that, he asked the question, "What made you suspect that?" Then Chitara told Roberville, I know this sounds crazy, but my sixth sense says that you and your friends are in trouble, that you might be enslaved by the mutants or something. Well, they're not here, Roberville said. Now Chitara's really confused. What was going on? There's no attack, no mutants, no nothing. But then Chitara's sixth sense sensed that there's another attack, but this time at the Treetop Kingdom where the warrior maidens live. But not just that, it's Sky Tomb with the Lunatics. So now she's telling Lionel that there's another attack, but this time at the Treetop Kingdom. Back with Lionel, he was asking Chitara if she was sure of it. Not only did Chitara said that she's sure, so in the Thunderclaw, Lionel and Chitara head to the Treetop Kingdom. Long story short, as the Thunderclaw heads to the Treetop Kingdom, but what Chitara doesn't even realize. Back at Castle Plunder, remember the telepathy beam that I talked about? Well, remember it was Vultureman and Alluro who built it earlier. Now Alluro just made a compliment with Vultureman and then asked how come that he, Alluro, and Vultureman didn't even think about working together before. Well, to answer Alluro's question, that's when Vultureman confessed that with both Alluro's skills and Vultureman's skills combined, they knew that the telepathy beam would work properly. By surprise, Vultureman just told Alluro how the telepathy beam works. He says it's really simple. All I had to do is just plant these fake images inside Cheetara. So it'll lead to coin a phrase, the wild goose chase for the Thundercats, meaning Lionel, the leader of the Thundercats himself. Then, long story short, Luna, the leader of the Lunatics, and along with Amok, well, Luna just told Alluro the good news that she just spotted Panthro in the Thunder Tank in the eastern woods. Who had just heard the good news from Luna, he said it might be easier to capture Panthro that way because, well, he won't be going alone because he knows that Tugmug will be going along with him. And of course, as anyone will tell you, it's all part of the plan. Said that the plan was simply this, that once Panthro has been hypnotized and persuaded to upgrade the Sky Tomb, just like he did with the Feliner, the Lunatics will be in New Thundera in no time. Back with Alluro, who had just headed off to his mission, and then Luna, the leader of the Lunatics, just asked Vultureman a question. Are you sure that the telepathy being will keep Cheetara distracted? Well, not only did Vultureman tell her that he's sure, but better than that, he said that Cheetara wouldn't know up from down, even if she sees it, thanks to the telepathy beam. So in other words, in Vultureman's case, she's going to get so distracted that she's going to be left totally confused. Long story short, back with Alluro, he does what he knows best. He hypnotized a tricorn elk to be used as bait for Panthro. Speaking of Panthro, there he is driving a thunder tank, and he just saw a tricorn elk that's standing in the road. Luckily for Panthro, he stopped the thunder tank when he did. So when he asked the tricorn elk to get out of the road, it just stood there. That means it refused to move. So Panthro came up with Plan B to honk the thunder tank's horn. So he did, but still the elk won't move. Back with Panthro, when he found out that the elk refused to move, so he thought, why not move it out of the road? But then he should have realized right then that he wasn't alone. Someone is about to hypnotize him, and that someone is Alluro of the Lunatics. But he has no idea. Back with Lionel and Cheetara on the Thunderclaw, they had finally arrived at the Treetop Kingdom. But for the second time, there were no signs of an attacks. No Lunatics, no Sky Tomb, no nothing. Lionel finds this really weird, and so did Cheetara. Even though Cheetara had no idea what was going on, but she told Lionel to keep an eye out in case if there's a trap lurking around. Back with Panthro, he attempted to get the elk off the road, but he had no idea until Alluro showed up, and so did Tugmug. When Cheetara at the Treetop Kingdom, that's when Cheetara explained the will of the leader and her sister Nada what her sixth sense had told her, just like she did at the Burble Village. So Willa has her turn to plead her case to Cheetara that lately the mutants and the lunatics have been leaving them alone. So, in other words, Willa and Nada hasn't seen them lately. So after that, Chitara had made an omission with Lionel to say, maybe I've been seeing things, or maybe she says in her case that her powers have been failing her somehow. Anyway, Chitara had pleaded her case with Lionel to confess that that's the second time that she has led him on a wild goose chase, and she's fearing that she's letting him and the Thundercats down. Well, you've never been wrong before, Lionel said. So Lionel suggested to Cheetara that they should look around, so that's what they did. Back with Panthro, he goes on a battle with both Tugmug and Alluro of the Lunatics. Now Alluro will show up later, but right now Panthro's one-on-one with Tugmug. But then during the battle, and I told you we'll get to Alluro later, and he hypnotized Panthro, just like what he did with the elk. But by surprise, the Altus rescued Panthro, and good thing it did. Back with Lionel and Cheetara at the Treetop Kingdom. Story short, Cheetara had sensed that Panthro had dodged Togmug's attack. So Lionel saw what had happened, and luckily he caught her from behind. But unfortunately, bad news for Panthro. Tugmug does what he knows best. He uses his gravity gun, and that's when his leader Luna shows up, and along with Ogmug. Back with Lionel and Chitara, that's when Lionel asked her what was going on, and that's when she said that she thought she had sensed Panthro being in danger, but then she kind of dismissed it. Then she said that maybe Tugmug and Alluro had captured him already, but then it might be a mistake somehow. Are you sure about this? Lionel asked. At first, Chitara hesitated, and then she said to herself that she already tricked Lionel twice, but she's not going through it again. After Cheetara just told Lionel that she's sure of it, back with Panthro, he was being hypnotized by Alluro, the Lunatics. So Alluro just told Panthro that he has a favor for him. Long story short, bad news for Panthro. That means he's been held prisoner because of Alluro's mind control. So meanwhile, a Sky Tomb. Well, back to the favor that Alluro needs for Panthro. He says all you had to do is just upgrade the Sky Tomb, just like what you did with the Feliner, he said, so that we can go to New Thundera, he said. Back with Vultureman at the Castle Plunder's control room, he's still activating the telepathy beam. Well, according to Vultureman, he just pleaded his case to say that Chitara, to coin a phrase, hasn't seen anything yet. So what he did was unbelievable. He projected fake images of Panthro where he may be. One to Hook Mountain, one to the Black Pyramid's tomb chamber, and one to Castle Plondor. Long story short, meanwhile, at the Castler's control room, after both Lionel and Chitara just got back from Treetop Kingdom, and you could tell she's really confused. And let's not forget, the Thunderkins are in the control room too, just like they did. Then Chitara started pleading her case to Lionel to say, I'm not so sure how else to explain this to you. And that's when Tigress shows up to tell him the bad news. He said he found the Thunder Tank, but he finds it weird that it was empty because he had no idea that Panthro was just now missing. After learning the bad news, that's when Chitara finally confessed to Lionel that she knows that Panthro's in trouble, but she's afraid to tell him anything now. The reason why she's afraid is because she just told Lionel that she doesn't want to make a fool of herself, just like she did twice. But then, suddenly, her sixth sense started telling her that Panthro is really in trouble, but now he's in three places. One in Hook Mountain, one in Castle Plondor, and the other in the Black Pyramid's tomb chamber. Back in the control room, that's when Chitara told Lionel, I'm not so sure what's real or what's not anymore. Lionel says, listen, we can cover more ground if we split up. So he told the Thunderkins to get the thermal suits and head to Hook Mountain. Tiger can get the anti-gravity boost and head to Castle Plundor, while Lionel, he suggested to check out the Black Pyramid's tomb chamber. So he also told Cheetara, listen, you can stay here in case if Linkso contacts you. So he heads off. After Lionel left, that's when Cheetara pleaded herself a case to say maybe Lionel doesn't believe in her or maybe she doesn't believe in herself and etc. Back with the Thunderkins, they have a ride down Hook Mountain. Now remember, they just left the lair moments ago to find Panthro. But they should have realized right then that they weren't alone, because Chilla of the Lunatics, she's on her mission. So what Chilla did is that she does what she knows best. She created a distraction for the Thunderkins, and by how? Using her firepower to create a distress signal for them. So when they saw it, they knew that there was no time to lose. But they should have realized right then it was all a trap, so they fell in a hole in the ice. By the time that the Thunder Kittens looked up, it's Sheila. So she, to coin a phrase, had told the kittens, I'm glad you're wearing your thermal suit. Too bad it's not going to keep you warm. So what she did is that she does what she knows best. She froze the Thunder Kittens in ice. Meanwhile, back with Tigra, he had just arrived at Castle Plondor. Now, Tiger's mission is to find out if Panthro is in there, and he suspected the exact same thing as the Thunder Kittens did. So, after putting on the anti gravity boots, he did what any Thundercat would do, make himself invisible. But he should have known that he wasn't alone, because Red Eye of the Lunatics, he's also there. Now, back with Tiger, who had no idea that Red Eye was watching him until he was blasted from behind thanks to Red Eye. And the next thing you know, he gets caught in the net. So things are looking bad for Tigra. Back with Lionel, who had just left the Cat's Lair moments ago, he had arrived at the Black Pyramid. So, by the time he went inside the tomb chamber, he at first found it weird that it was empty, except for a bunch of sarcophaguses lined up in a row. But then he realizes that he wasn't alone, because Luna the leader, and along with Amok, had arrived just like what he did. So Luna and Amok showed up behind Lionel, only that after Lionel found out that the sarcophagus was empty. She just let slip to Lionel, you have been tricked. Panthro's not here, she said. Lionel goes one on one with Luna. He says, well, we'll just see about that. And he goes into a combat with her, but she's not alone because let's not forget Amok, so it's 2-on-1. So, after that battle, long story short, that's when Lionel was about to do what a good guy would do to project a Thundercat signal, but Luna screams, no! And next thing you know, Lionel gets grabbed from behind by one of the Spirits of Evil statues. So what the statue did next was to spray some sleeping gas on him. So even though Luna and Unlock were not affected by the sleeping gas, but Lionel did, and he was knocked out unconscious. Meanwhile, back with the Feeliner in outer space, Bengali, who was one of the Thundercats, and along with Pumira, he just told Linkso in the tower's control room that there's a problem with the orbit and it's falling apart. And as for the Feeliner, it just lost all power. So who was in the Tower Owen's control room after he heard the bad news? He said, don't worry, Feeliner. We'll recharge you with a Thundrillion packs after I contact Castler in doing that, he suggested. So Linkso decided to contact Cheetara at the Kessler's control room, so he did. He said, can you hear me, Cheetara? In the Kessler's control room, that's when Chitara said not only did she murder the feliner in distress, but she says, I hear you, Link, so go ahead. And he says, listen to me. I want you to refill the Dundradium packs in the feliner right away, he said. But Chitara hesitated and then told Link, so I'm not sure which sequence of the buttons to push, she said. Back with the feliner in our space. The part of its tail broke up because the rock just hit it. And that's when Pumara told Linkso in the tower's control room, I think we got a problem here. We're falling apart. So, in the tower's control room, that's when Linkso contacted Chitara in the Kessler's control room to enter the sequence and hurry up. But Chitara's getting worried and told Linkso that too much power in the Feeliner may blow them up. Press 4, 12, and 6, Chitara, Linkso said, and hurry. And so she did. So, good news, thanks to Chitara, the power's back in the Feeliner. Also, the good news is that Bengali and Palmyra were relieved to hear that the Feeliner's now back in control, but now it was time for them to come back. So, back with Linkso in the tower's control room after hearing the good news, he said that the Feeliner's coming in for an automatic landing and then ended the transmission. Back in the Kessler's control room, that's when Chitara apologized to Linkso. The reason she apologized? Because she says that her indecision had almost cost them their lives, but cost them the mission, them being Bengali and Palmyra. To make Chitara feel better, that's when Linkso says that you knew the sequence because, according to him, she's the one that taught it to him. So Linkso asked her what happened. In omission by confession, that's when Chitara told Linkso that she doesn't trust herself anymore because she said that earlier her sixth sense had told her that there was something wrong, but twice nothing happened. After learning about Chitara's confession, that's when Linkso told her to explain it to him, so she did. Meanwhile, at Darkside and at Sky Tomb, so, in the cage, we have the Thunderkins frozen in ice thanks to Chilla. We have Tigra in the net thanks to Red Eye. And then we have Lino who is knocked out at the moment thanks to the sleeping gas back at the pyramid. So, watching them all was Alluro. And also there was Luna and Amok. And she just took Lionel's sword. She tried to get the sword to work, but nothing happened. That's because she forgot one simple detail that the Sword of Omens will never respond, especially to the bad guys. So Luna, who's the leader, she's now all upset, and so she gives it to Amok to trash it. But he couldn't break it in half, even with his superhuman strength. When the sword's power had blinded Almach, he tosses the sword away, and the sword landed blade first right in front of Lionel, who was still unconscious at the moment. Remember Panthro? Remember he was still under mind control by hypnosis thanks to Alluro. But Lionel was never aware of this, and neither was Cheetara, who was still back in Castlair. So speaking of Alluro, he just told his leader Luna, "Never mind that. Besides, Panthro's almost done anyway," he said. Speaking of Panthro, now that he's heading towards the Skytoon's control room as Alluro continues to plead a case that once all the modifications are finished, they can head to New Thundera and claim the treasures for themselves. Long story short, back with Vultureman in the castle's control room, he's still operating the telepathy beam. Now remember, that's the same machine that both he and Alluro have built earlier. Meanwhile, in the Kessler's control room, Chitara's now really confused, and she's not so sure whether those images she's seen just now were real or not. Then Chitara receives a transmission from Linkso in the Tower Woman's control room. He said, "Can you hear me, Chitara?" "Yes, I'm here," she says, "but these images," she said, "I'm not sure whether they're real or not," she said. In other words, what she's telling Linkso that she's in serious trouble and that her sixth sense have been blowing out of proportions. So Linkso, to make Chitara feel better, he says, "Listen to me." Then he told Chitara that while she and Lena were in the Thunderclaw earlier, there was some kind of a signal and it's coming from Castle Plondor, he said. So, what Linkso is telling Chitara that in other words, when Chitara got the confirmation from Linkso that all those images she's seen were fake and that someone has been planning them all along, and she know who that someone was, Vultureman of the Mutants. Yes, she should have seen this coming because it was all part of the plan. So Chitara now knows that she has to fight back, but there's only one problem. How? And Linkso told her something very interesting. He said that ever since he was blind, he's been listening with his ears. He can pick up on sounds and signals that no other Thundercat could. But then Linkso told her something else that's interesting. When he stopped listening with his ears, he started listening with his heart. So he told Cheetara, listen to me. Instead of relying on your sixth sense, why don't you listen to your own heart? So, in the Cat's Lairs control room, after hearing this question from Linkso, what does your heart tell you? What does it say to you? So, Cheetara, by surprise, does something she's never tried before. So she closes her eyes and then said, I'm Cheetara. I know that I'm the strongest in my kind. I'm also the pride of my people, she said further. And finally she says, I will not be defeated. And when she said that, something impossible but miraculous happened. A strange burst of light just came out of Chitara's body from the cat's lair, and then it went straight to the Castle Plunder's control room where it destroyed the telepathy beam. Vultureman, who was controlling it, just couldn't believe what he'd just witnessed. The burst of light did next is that it had damaged the Sky Tomb's engines. So, panicked, the lunatics went inside to see what is going on. And as for Panthro, who's still in the control room, felt that burst of light from Cheetara coming from Kessler's control room. And when he did, guess what? He's no longer under Alluro's mind control. Finally, what the burst of light did is that it went into Lionel's sword. Then it picked itself up and went inside of the cage where Lionel was still unconscious, but not for long. It went right into Lionel's hand. Now, Lionel, who finally woke up, he had no idea what was going on, but he's going to get himself and his friends out. First thing that Lionel did is that he uses his sword's power to break the Thundercats out of the ice. Next thing he did is that he broke Tiger free from the net, thanks to Lionel's sword. Last but not least, Lionel uses the sword to cut the bars through the cage. Also coming out of the Skytoon's control room is Panthro to tell him the good news that he's back on the team, and good thing he did. Now Luna's all upset, and she just told Lionel, I don't know what you did and how you did it, but you're going to pay for that. The five of them can go into battle first things first. Lionel did what any good guy would do. He projected the Thundercat signal from his sword, so he did. Back in the Feeliner in outer space, soon as Pumira and Bengali saw the signal, they're now on their way. In the meantime, back on Third Earth and at Darkside, Luna, the leader, had just told the Lunatics to attack the Thundercats right away. But Alluro says, wait a minute, here comes the Feeliner and it's on its way right now. And wouldn't you know it, Alluro was soon proven right because here comes the Feeliner. Now, Laurel told Luna that since there is no way they can have a chance against the Feeliner since the Skytomb's engines are offline anyway, it was time for the Lunatics to leave, but before they did that, that's when Luna told the Thundercats that this isn't over yet, not by a long shot, so the Skytomb was getting away. Go any further, now the telepathy beam is destroyed, so you know what this means. The Lunatics' plan backfired, thanks to the Thundercats who once again won the day. And back with Cheetara, who looks at the Thundercat signal out the window, she says that that's definitely an image I will agree. Long story short, now that Bengali and Pumara are back at the Tower of Omens, so meanwhile at the Castler's meeting room, there's Cheetara sitting in the window, and I'm guessing it's confirmed that Lionel just told the Thunderkins what had happened. Well, according to Wiley Kid, she just told Cheetara, wow, I had no idea that you have telekinesis, because that's what Lionel told the kittens earlier back in the control room. So even though Cheetara agrees with Wiley Kid, she said that she had no idea either. Until that very moment when she got upset and desperate, she had to do what's necessary, so she tapped into something she never had before. So that explains her telekinesis. So, also in the meeting room were Tigra, Panthro, and Lionel just asked Cheetara, do you really think she could do it the second time as she did the first time? Well, to answer that question, that's when Chitara told her friends that she's not so sure she will or not. But one thing is clear, she's stronger now than she was. Also, an omission by confession, that's when Chitara said that when she uses her sixth sense, she's not as weak as she was before. So Panthro has his turn to plead a case to say what a day it's been, and he's not kidding. So he said he might as well get his equipment together. So Panthro says, "Oh, speaking of which, I might as well get to the tower as soon as Snarf comes back. I had to fix the Thunderclaw," he said. Oh, speaking of Snarf, he's been at the Verbal Village throughout the whole episode, but he'll show up at the lair later. Before Panthro can head off, that's when Chitara says, "Well, I guess you better hurry because Snarf is on his way right now." And wouldn't you know it, Snarf had just arrived in the meeting room after his trip to the Verbal Village. Told you we'd get back to him later. And by surprise, the Thunderkins were impressed. So Wily Cat, who's Wily Kit's brother, had asked Chitara a question. "How did you know? Did your sixth sense tell you that?" "No, not this time," Chitara says, because she confessed that she's been looking out the window the whole time. So I guess you could say Chitara had learned her lesson that day and followed Linksel's advice to listen to her heart. So that's exactly what she'll do from now on and not take her visions for granted anymore. So that ends episode 9.